I never imagined the greatest gift I'd ever give my son would become the weapon he used to gut me. My name is Tobias Toby Gorman, and I'm 65 years old. For 40 years, my hands lived in grease and oil. They built everything I have from the guts of engines at the same auto shop on Elm Street, right here in Long Beach. They're scarred and calloused, but they're honest hands. I'm not a rich man, but I've paid my bills. I'm a man who knows what a long day's work feels like. I understand the quiet price of sacrifice, of putting someone else's future ahead of your own. My life with my son, Elias, truly began when he was 5. I was left to raise him by myself. His mother, Naomi Foster, decided the life of a mechanic's wife wasn't the one she'd pictured. She walked out in 1999 with 2 suitcases and left every responsibility she had right at my feet. I can still see the confusion on Elias's little face that October afternoon. I sat him down on the front steps and tried to explain that Mom wasn't coming back. From that day on, it was just him and me. If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from or what time it is for you. Elias practically grew up in that garage. After school, he'd run in, dump his backpack in the corner, and do his homework while I finished rebuilding a transmission or tuning an engine. He was a good kid, curious about everything. He'd ask about the tools, the engines, the different models, but one brand captured his imagination more than any other. BMWs. "Dad," he'd say, his eyes wide as a new 5 Series rolled in. "When can we get a car like that?" I'd just smile and ruffle his hair. "Someday, son. You work hard in school, you get a good education, and you can have whatever you want." For him, a BMW wasn't just a car. It was a sign. It meant you'd made it. He saw his classmates getting dropped off in expensive, gleaming sedans while we walked or waited for the city bus. He never complained, not once. But I saw the longing in his eyes. I knew what he wanted. The years clicked by like a ratchet. Elias grew up, and he was a good student. He wasn't a genius, but he was steady. He was consistent. He pushed himself because he knew, just as I did, that his education was the ladder out. It was his ticket to a life better than the one I'd had. When he graduated high school and got his acceptance letter to California Stream University to study industrial engineering, my heart nearly burst. I was so proud I couldn't even speak. Those college years were tough. I worked extra hours, took on side jobs on Saturdays, and even started welding frames at home in the garage at night. Every single dollar I earned, every penny of overtime, I funneled into a savings account. I had a plan, a dream I was building piece by piece, just like an engine. When Elias graduated, I was going to keep the promise I made to that little boy in the garage. I was going to buy him his BMW. It wouldn't be brand new. It wouldn't be the latest model. But it would be his. In June of 2023, Elias graduated with good grades. The time had finally come. I'd saved for years, nickel by nickel, and I had enough. I found a 2018 BMW 320i at a used car dealership over on Ventura Boulevard. It wasn't new, but it was immaculate, with only 45,000 miles. It was silver, sleek, and it was the exact car he had always dreamed about. I remember walking into that dealership. The salesman, a young guy named David Hollis, was all smiles until I told him I didn't need financing. "Are you sure, sir? We have some great rates," he pressed. I just smiled and pulled out the envelope. It was stuffed with every bill I'd saved for the last 5 years. $2,800, I said. "It's all there." It was practically every cent I had to my name. What David didn't know, and what I consciously decided, was to keep the car registered in my name. All the documents, the title, the registration, they all said Tobias Gorman. At that moment, I told myself it was just a father's precaution, a way to keep some control until Elias showed he was fully mature. I never, ever imagined that simple decision would one day be my salvation. Graduation day was June 15th, 2023. I led Elias out to the garage of our little house in Valley Glen, my hand over his eyes. "Okay, Dad, what is this? The suspense is killing me," he laughed. When I took my hand away, he just froze. There it was, the silver BMW, gleaming under the single garage light, with a giant red bow on the hood. His eyes filled with tears. Is this mine, Dad? Are you serious? Is it really mine?" His voice cracked. I pulled him into a hug, my own throat tight. "You deserve it, son. You worked so hard for this. I'm so proud of you." That night, Elias couldn't sleep. I heard him get up 3 or 4 times, just to go to the window and look out at the driveway, making sure the car was still there. The next morning, he was up at dawn, dressed in his best clothes, and went out to wash and wax it before taking it for a drive. Seeing him that happy, that full of pure joy, filled me with a satisfaction I can't describe. I had done the right thing. I had kept my promise. I had no way of knowing that this perfect, beautiful gift would become the engine of the worst nightmare of my life. The first few days were a dream. Elias was home all the time, beaming. He told me about how perfectly the engine purred, how smooth the ride was. He even asked me to teach him some basic maintenance. "I want to take care of it like you take care of all the cars, Dad," he said, meticulously cleaning every inch of the silver body. But then, something started to change. It was slow at first, so subtle I barely noticed it. The first sign was him coming home late. He always used to be home for dinner, ready to tell me about his day. Now, he was rolling in after 10 p.m., sometimes later. When I asked where he'd been, he was evasive. "Just out, Dad, meeting new people, making contacts for work." The second sign was his clothes. Elias had always been a simple guy, just like me. Jeans, t-shirts, a decent pair of sneakers. Suddenly, he was wearing designer shirts I'd never seen before, expensive Italian shoes, and a watch that I knew cost more than my entire monthly paycheck. "Where did you get the money for this stuff, Elias?" I asked him one night. "Oh, just picked up some freelance consulting gigs," he said, barely looking up from his phone. "It's good money." The moment that truly alarmed me came one afternoon in August. I got home from the shop a little early and found Elias in the backyard, talking on his phone. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but his voice was loud and it carried. "Yeah, of course," he was saying, pacing back and forth. "My father owns a German auto parts import company. That's how I got the BMW. It's the model he uses to test the quality of the parts he imports." I stood frozen in the kitchen, paralyzed. An import company? Me? A simple mechanic who'd spent 40 years with grease under his fingernails. He was lying, shamelessly. I didn't confront him. I didn't know what to say. I just told myself he was young, trying to impress people. But that seed of worry, it started to grow right in my chest. The lies got worse. In September, we had a family barbecue at my sister Claire Gorman Quincy's house. Elias showed up acting like a completely different person. He spoke with this strange, refined accent, using words I knew he'd looked up. My brother-in-law Randall asked him how the job hunt was going. Elias launched into this incredible story about negotiating international contracts in the premium automotive sector. My sister Claire looked at me, her eyes wide with confusion. She'd known me her whole life. She knew my financial situation down to the penny. Later, when Elias went to get another drink, she cornered me by the grill. "Toby, what on earth is going on with that boy? He's talking like he's a millionaire's son." I tried to laugh it off. "Ah, you know kids, big dreams." But inside, I was burning with a mix of shame and a deep, cold concern. What hurt the most was how he started to treat me. He didn't ask about my day anymore. He didn't care about my health. "Hey, Elias," I'd say. "Want to go visit Gus on Saturday? We're going to watch the game." "Dad, I can't," he'd sigh, like I'd asked him to clean the gutters. "I have important commitments. I have to network." Networking. My son, who grew up on simple values, was now spitting corporate jargon at me and acting like our whole life had been some kind of embarrassing mistake. In October, the transformation was complete. He came home one night with a group of young people. They were clearly from a different world. The girls carried purses that cost more than my monthly pension. The boys wore flashy watches and talked about restaurants I'd only ever read about. He brought them inside, and I came out of the kitchen to say hello. "This is my father," Elias said with a tight, forced smile. "He's semi-retired from his businesses. Now he focuses more on his hobbies." One of the young men looked at me. "Oh yeah? What business was that?" Before I could even open my mouth, Elias jumped in. "Technical consulting in the automotive sector. Very specialized. You'd be bored." Later that night, after they'd left, I had to say something. "Elias, son, why did you lie to them? There's nothing wrong with being a mechanic. It's an honest job. It's given us everything we have." His answer felt like a slap. "Dad, they just wouldn't understand, okay? They come from different families. It's fine to just enhance the story a little bit, right?" Enhance the story. As if our life was something broken, something to be ashamed of. After that, Elias became a ghost in his own home. He left before I woke up and came home long after I'd gone to bed. The BMW was his entire identity. One day in December, I was cleaning the house and found a pile of receipts in his room. Bills from exclusive restaurants, VIP nightclub tickets, purchases from designer clothing stores. The numbers made me dizzy. How was he paying for this? The answer was waiting in my mailbox. I opened my bank statement. The supplementary credit card I had given him, for gas and true emergencies, was on fire. He had been spending my retirement savings to maintain this fantasy life. Premium fuel, specialized maintenance on the BMW, additional insurance he'd taken out without even asking me. Thousands of dollars. My son was spending me into the ground to impress people who didn't even know who he really was. And the worst part? He seemed to have completely forgotten who he was. March 8th, 2024. The day started like any other, but it ended up changing my life. I woke up feeling strange. There was an intense, crushing pressure in my chest. I felt dizzy, and my vision was blurry. I brushed it off as fatigue, as stress from watching my son drift further and further away. But as I was making coffee, the pressure got so bad I had to grab the counter. I sat down hard. My hands were shaking. I felt like someone was squeezing my heart in a giant fist. Elias was in the shower, music blasting, getting ready to leave. He had no time to talk to me. I managed to grab the phone and call my neighbor, August Gus Bishop. He's my chess partner every Thursday. "Gus," I gasped. I think something's wrong with me. Can you come over?" Gus was at my door in less than 5 minutes. He's a 68-year-old retired welder, a man of few words but solid as rock. He took one look at me and didn't hesitate. I'm taking you to the hospital. Now. At Valley Community Hospital, a cardiologist named Dr. Martin Trent examined me for hours. The tests came back, and his face was grim. Mr. Gorman, your blood pressure is at 190/120. This is a hypertensive crisis. You are at immediate risk of a stroke or a heart attack. He was serious. You need absolute rest, he ordered. Immediate medication, strict monitoring, no physical exertion, and absolutely no emotional stress. When I got home that afternoon, weak and shaky, Elias was just walking out the door. He was in one of his expensive shirts, keys to the BMW dangling from his finger. Where have you been, Dad? I was looking for you. He lied, without even making eye contact. I explained everything: the hospital visit, the diagnosis, the need for rest. His reaction was the cold, hollow response of the stranger he'd become. Well, Dad, it's probably just stress. Get some rest. It'll pass. He glanced at his watch. I have to go. I'm meeting some investors to talk about a project. Investors. Another fantasy. He walked out the door, leaving me standing there terrified and alone. The next few days were a blur. The medication made me drowsy and weak. I had to check my blood pressure 3 times a day. I couldn't do anything. No chores, no shopping, no cooking. I needed help. But Elias was living on another planet. He came home later, spent more money. When I asked him for something simple like picking up my prescription, he always had an urgent commitment he couldn't possibly break. On March 15th, exactly 1 week after my diagnosis, the SoCal electric bill arrived. It was $180. Normally, I'd just pay it online, but I felt too dizzy to even look at the computer screen. I couldn't leave the house. That evening, when Elias got home, I asked him for the favor. Son, I need you to do something very important for me. I handed him the bill and $180 in cash from my wallet. I have to pay this, but I don't feel strong enough to go out. Could you please take care of it tomorrow? He took the money without even glancing at the bill. Of course, Dad. Don't worry about it. I'll pay it first thing. He patted my shoulder with that condescending air he'd developed and disappeared into his room. The next day, I watched from the window as Elias left early in his gleaming BMW. I felt a wave of relief, thinking he was heading straight to the payment office. A week went by. I rested, took my medication, and felt a little calmer, thinking that at least one thing was handled. But something was bothering me. When I asked Elias for the payment receipt, he brushed me off. It's done, Dad. Don't worry about those things. He never showed me any proof. On March 23rd, the letter arrived. It was an official, bright red notification from SoCal Electric. Our service was scheduled to be suspended the next day for non-payment. My heart hammered in my chest. My blood pressure instantly spiked. With a trembling hand, I called the customer service number. Good morning. This is Tobias Gorman. I'm calling about my March bill. The employee, a woman named Pamela Croft, was polite but direct. Mr. Gorman, according to our records, the bill due March 20th has not been paid. That's why the service cutoff has been scheduled. But that's impossible, I said, my voice breaking. My son paid that bill a week ago. There must be a mistake. Pamela checked again. Sir, I assure you there is no payment recorded. Do you have a confirmation number? Or a receipt? I hung up, feeling sick. It couldn't be true. My own son. Seeing me this sick, this dependent, he couldn't have lied to me. Not about this. That afternoon, when Elias breezed in, smelling of expensive cologne, I was waiting for him in the living room. Elias, we need to talk about the electricity bill. His expression didn't flicker. "What about it, Dad?" he asked with a casual, terrifying calm. "The company says it hasn't been paid. They're going to cut off our power tomorrow." He stared at me for a few seconds. Then he smiled. It was that smooth, practiced smile he used on his new friends. "Dad, it must be an administrative error. You know how these companies are? I assure you, I paid it. But I knew my son. I'd raised him. I saw that same look when he was 5 and lied about brushing his teeth. The only difference was that now he was a grown man, lying to his sick father about something that could jeopardize my health." "Elias," I said, my voice dangerously quiet, "if you paid it, where is the receipt?" His mask finally cracked. "A receipt? Dad, I don't keep receipts for basic things like that. Just trust me. It's paid." At that moment, I knew, with absolute sickening certainty. He had stolen my money. He had looked me in the eye and lied for a week while I was sick, and he was going to keep lying. The next morning, March 24th, I woke up at 6 a.m., not to my alarm, but to the sound of a SoCal electric truck outside. I watched from my bedroom window as 2 uniformed technicians got out. They worked quickly, methodically, and disconnected the power to my house. The silence that followed was deafening. The refrigerator hummed to a stop. The digital clock on the oven went blank. The heat died. And worst of all, my digital blood pressure monitor, the one I relied on, was dead. I couldn't charge it. Elias woke up around 10 a.m. I heard him flick a light switch. Nothing. He tried another. He walked to the kitchen and yanked open the refrigerator, only to be met with silence. His footsteps stormed toward my room. "Dad, what happened to the power?" he demanded, as if he had no idea. His ability to feign innocence was stunning. I sat up slowly in bed, the pressure already building in my temples. "Exactly what I told you would happen, Elias. They cut the power, because you never paid the bill." "But I did pay it, Dad. It has to be a mistake." He still believed his own lie. At that moment, I made a decision. I got up, walked past him to the kitchen, and picked up the battery-powered landline. I dialed SoCal Electric. "Good morning, Pamela. This is Tobias Gorman again. My service was just cut off. My son is right here with me, and he insists he paid the bill. Could you please confirm exactly when and how that payment was made?" I pressed the speakerphone button. Elias froze. Pamela's voice filled the cold kitchen. "Mr. Gorman, as I said yesterday, I have just reviewed your account again. There is no record of any payment since February. The March bill for $180 is still pending." "Are you sure?" I asked, looking right at Elias. "No chance it's lost in the system?" "Sir, our system is real-time," she said patiently. "If a payment had been made at any bank in any way, it would be recorded. I can assure you, no payment was ever made." I hung up the phone and slowly turned to face my son. Elias's eyes, which for months had held nothing but arrogance, now showed something new. Fear. "Elias," I said, my voice flat and cold, "this is your last chance. Tell me the truth. Where's my 180? He was silent. I could see his mind racing, trying to invent one more lie. But he saw something in my face that told him the game was over. "Dad," he stammered. "What happened was, I needed the money for something important. I was going to replace it. I was going to put it back before you even noticed." "Something important?" I repeated, the betrayal twisting in my gut. "More important than the electricity for the house? More important than your sick father?" He ran his hands through his hair, a nervous tic he's had since he was a kid. It was the tires, Dad. The tires on the BMW. The original ones were worn, and I needed new ones. Premium Michelin tires, the best. They cost exactly $180. Tires. My son had stolen the money for our power to buy expensive tires for the car I gave him. While I was fighting a health crisis, he was worried about his image. And when were you going to replace it? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Soon, Dad. I have projects in the works, investments. I would have had the money in a week or two. Projects, investments, the same empty words he'd been using for months. I sat down heavily in a kitchen chair, the energy draining out of me. It wasn't just the money, it was the lie. The cold, calculated lie, every day for a week. It was him watching me, sick and vulnerable and feeling nothing. It was the realization that my son, the boy I raised, was capable of this. Elias, I said, my voice thick, for 28 years I have given you everything. I raised you alone. I worked my fingers to the bone to give you an education, to give you this life, to give you that car. And you repay me by stealing from me while I'm sick. It's not stealing, Dad. It was a temporary loan. No! I finally roared, my blood pressure be damned. It's not a loan when you take it without asking. It's not temporary when you lie for a week. It's theft, Elias. You stole from your sick father. He recoiled, shocked by my voice. He'd gotten used to me just taking it, just being quiet. But then, something inside him snapped. Instead of shame, instead of an apology, his face hardened. He stood up straight and looked at me with an expression of pure, chilling contempt. You know what, Dad? He said, his voice as cold as the house. Maybe this is exactly what you needed. Maybe being here in the dark, without your comforts, will help you reflect on what it's really like to be a failure. The word hit me like a punch. Failure. Yes, Dad, he continued, a cruel twist on his lips. A failure. Maybe now you'll understand why I have to be different. Why I can't live the pathetic, simple life you've always lived. In that instant, something inside me broke. But it wasn't my heart. It wasn't my spirit. It was my patience. I smiled. A slow, calm smile that must have terrified him, because he took an involuntary step back. You're right, son, I said, my voice perfectly serene. It is time to reflect. Elias scoffed, grabbing the BMW keys from the counter. I'm leaving. This is pathetic. When you decide to act like an adult and pay the bill, let me know. He slammed the front door. The sound echoed through the silent, dead house. From the window, I watched him get into his immaculate silver BMW, the one with the brand new $180 tires. I watched him speed away, probably off to tell his rich friends how he'd put his failure of a father in his place. He had no idea. He had just made the biggest mistake of his life, and I was already planning the lesson that would change his forever. I stood in that cold, dark kitchen for a long time. The echo of his word, failure, bounced around the empty rooms. 40 years of honest work, raising a boy alone. All of it reduced to that one poisonous word. But instead of self-pity, I felt a strange, cold clarity, a determination that hardened my spine. I went to my room, grabbed my medications, a jacket, and my checkbook. I used the last bit of battery on my cell phone to call Gus. Gus, it's Tobias. A situation here with Elias has gotten complicated. Can I stay with you for a few hours? My power is out. My friend didn't ask a single question. My door's open, Toby. Come on over. In less than 10 minutes, he was there, helping me with my bag. Gus had been a welder, a man who understood hard work. We'd played chess for 5 years, and he knew the whole story. He'd seen Elias change. Once I was settled on his sofa, with a hot cup of coffee and the sound of a working heater, I could finally think. Gus sat across from me at his chess table, waiting. "He stole the electricity money, Gus," I said, my voice flat. "He stole it to buy tires for the BMW, and when I confronted him, he called me a failure." Gus silently moved a white pawn. It was our ritual when one of us needed to talk. "So," he said quietly, "what are you going to do about it, Tobias?" That was the question. For months I'd been passive. I justified his behavior. He's young, he's finding his way. But he wasn't a kid. He was a 28-year-old man who had chosen to humiliate his sick father. "I'm going to teach him what it really means to reflect," I said. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay on Gus's sofa, replaying the last few months over and over. The lies, the arrogance, the contempt. And then, like a light bulb turning on in my head, I remembered. The BMW. It wasn't his. It was legally 100% in my name. When I bought that car, I kept all the documentation, the title, the registration, the bill of sale. It was all Tobias Gorman. I'd told myself it was a precaution. I never dreamed it would become my winning card. At 6 a.m. on March 25th, I called the dealership. David Hollis, the salesman, remembered me. "The cash buyer. Yes, Mr. Gorman. The 2018 BMW 320i, license plate 5XYZ789. It's fully registered in your name. Do you need copies of the documents?" My next call was more important. I needed to be sure. At 9 a.m., I called the office of Raymond Stone, a lawyer who'd helped me with a workers' comp claim years ago. "Raymond, it's Tobias Gorman. I need an urgent consultation. It's a family matter." He saw me that afternoon. I laid out everything. The gift, the transformation, the lies, the stolen money, and finally, the insult. I showed him the title, the registration, the bill of sale. Raymond reviewed the documents. "Tobias," he said, "legally, this is simple. That vehicle is your property. You paid for it. Your son is using it with your implicit permission." "What if I withdraw that permission?" I asked. "You can reclaim the vehicle at any time. If he refuses to return it, he would be in possession of a stolen vehicle. You could report it, and the police would be obligated to recover it." He paused, looking at me over his glasses. "Are you sure you want to go to such extremes with your own son, Toby?" The question hung in the air. Was I? Then I saw Elias's face, twisted with contempt. I heard that word again. Failure. I remembered the cold, dark house, my dead blood pressure monitor. "Yes, Raymond," I said, my voice solid. "I am completely sure." "Very well," he said. "Go to the police precinct in your district. File a report for unauthorized use of a vehicle. Explain you had allowed him temporary use, but due to his behavior, you are revoking that permission. Once it's in the system, any patrol that spots the car will impound it." The plan was clear. It wasn't about revenge. It was about education. The next morning, March 26th, I walked into the Long Beach Police Department. The officer at the desk, a young man named Charles Brennan, listened patiently to my story. "So, just to be clear, Mr. Gorman," he said, "this vehicle is in your name, and you are officially reporting that your son no longer has permission to use it. Is that correct?" "That is 100% correct, officer. My son needs to learn that respect is not optional." I signed the papers. He handed me a copy of the report. File number 2244567. This is active now, Mr. Gorman, Officer Brennan explained. The alert for this license plate is being distributed to all patrols in the greater Long Beach area. I walked out of that precinct with the report in my pocket, feeling a strange mix of sadness and steel. The trap was set. Now, I just had to wait for him to drive right into it. I went back to Gus's house, but I couldn't settle down. Something was still bothering me. I borrowed Gus's laptop and logged into my bank account. My blood boiled. There was a new charge. From that morning, while I was at the police station, Elias had been busy. He had taken the BMW to an official service center and charged $320 for a premium synthetic oil change and engine inspection. He had used the supplementary credit card, the one I'd forgotten to cancel. While I was sick, in a house without power because of his 180 theft, he was spending another $320 of my money to maintain his fantasy. I grabbed the phone and called the bank. Michelle, this is Tobias Gorman. I need to cancel a supplementary credit card, immediately, the one ending in 467, and I want to dispute that last charge from the BMW service center. Yes, Mr. Gorman, she said. The card will be canceled within the next 5 minutes. Canceling it wasn't enough. He was out of control. That night, as Gus and I were setting up the chessboard, my phone rang. It was Elias. I let it go to voicemail. He called back. I let it ring. He called a third time. I answered. Yes. Dad, where are you? I went by the house. It's still dark. I need to talk to you. I'm where I can have electricity and heat, I said flatly. What do you need? Look, Dad, I've been thinking, maybe I was a little harsh, but you just frustrate me. I waited. I knew what was coming. I've met some investors, Dad. They're very interested in a German auto parts import project. It's a sure thing. If you help me with a small initial investment, say $5,000, we could be partners. You'll have your money back in 6 months, guaranteed. $5,000. He was asking me for $5,000. Elias, I said, my voice dangerously calm. The only conversation we are going to have is about when you are going to return the $180 you stole from me to pay the electric bill. I didn't steal it. I told you it was a loan. And this is a better proposal. Forget the $180, just invest $5,000 more. First, I interrupted, you return my money. You pay the bill. Then we can talk. Dad, you don't get it. You have to take risks to... He stopped. To what, Elias? I pushed. Like someone who doesn't understand modern opportunities, he finished. Oh, I understand opportunities perfectly, son, I said. And I understand responsibilities. Return my money. I hung up the phone. Gus just shook his head. That boy is on another planet, Toby. The next day, March 27th, I was sitting at Gus's kitchen table when my phone buzzed. It was a text alert from my bank. Fraud alert. Was an attempted charge of $75 to $80 at Desert Oasis Gas in Palmdale made by you? Reply yes or no. Palmdale. That was 2 hours away, deep in the high desert. Gus, I called out, my heart pounding. He's running. He tried to use the canceled card in Palmdale. He's running away. Are you sure? Gus asked, looking at the map. That's a long way. He's desperate. He must know I'm serious. My mind raced. If he fled with my car, this would get 10 times more complicated. We have to go. I have to stop him. Gus didn't hesitate. Get your coat, Toby. I'll get the keys. We spent the next 2 hours driving north, my truck eating up the highway. My anger was mixing with a new, bitter disappointment. He wasn't just arrogant, he was a coward, running away instead of facing me. We pulled into the Desert Oasis Gas, a rundown station in the middle of nowhere. I showed the report and my ID to the clerk, a tired-looking woman. "Yeah, I remember," she said, chewing her gum. "Cops already called. Card was declined." "Did you see him?" I asked, breathless. "My son, Elias, 28 years old, driving a silver BMW?" She laughed. "No, honey. It wasn't a guy. It was some young woman. Looked like she was on her way to Vegas. Tried 3 different cards, all declined. She got back in an old Honda and sped off." A woman. A Honda. I stood there, the desert wind whipping my jacket. It wasn't him. He wasn't running. He was still in Long Beach. He must have given the card number to one of his new friends. He was still manipulating people, still playing his games, still treating me like a fool. The 2-hour drive back to Long Beach was in complete, cold silence. The last bit of my hope, the part that thought maybe he was just scared, it all burned away. He wasn't scared. He was defiant. My resolve hardened into something I didn't recognize. It wasn't just about a lesson anymore. It was about justice. When we got back to Gus's house, I was shaking with a cold fury. "He's still here, Gus. He's probably out to lunch somewhere, spending more of my money, laughing at me." "So the plan is still on?" Gus asked. "The plan is more on than ever," I said. "He thinks I'm a fool. He thinks I'm just a tired old man he can push around." I checked my phone. No calls, no messages. Of course not. He was too busy being an importer. "He's going to fall, Gus," I said, more to myself than to him. "And I'm going to be there to make sure he feels the landing." The chase to Palmdale had been a failure, but it had succeeded in one thing. It had destroyed any last shred of doubt I had. It was time to end this. March 28th, the next morning. I woke up on Gus's sofa with a strange sense of calm. The trap was set. I decided to take a walk around my old neighborhood. I needed air. And if I was honest, I wanted to see if Elias was still at the house. As I walked down the familiar streets, Mrs. Crawford from the bakery saw me. "Mr. Gorman, how are you? We saw the electric truck at your house. Is everything okay?" "Just a payment mix-up, Helen," I lied, hating the taste of it. "All sorted now." "Well, you let me know if you need anything," she said warmly. "You're a good man, Tobias. Always have been." Her words strengthened my resolve. I was not a failure. I was an honest man who had been pushed too far. At 11 a.m., I saw it. The silver BMW pulled out of my garage. Elias was at the wheel, dressed in one of his expensive suits, talking animatedly on his phone, already arrogant. He sped down the street and turned toward downtown. He had no idea what was waiting for him. I went back to Gus's. We ate lunch. We set up the chessboard. I waited. At 2:15 p.m., my phone rang. An unknown number. "Mr. Tobias Gorman?" a sharp official voice asked. "This is he." "Sir, this is Officer Ryan Maddox with the Long Beach PD. We have a young man here, an Elias Gorman, who says he's your son. We need you to confirm some information regarding a 2018 BMW. My heart gave a single hard thump. "What kind of information, officer?" "The young man is driving a BMW, license plate 5XYZ789. The registration and title show you as the sole owner. Our system shows an active report for unauthorized use of this vehicle, filed by you." Officer Maddox's voice was professional. "Sir, can you confirm right now if your son has your permission to be driving this car?" This was it. The moment. "Officer Maddox," I said, my voice as steady as steel, My son does not have my authorization to use that vehicle. I filed that report because he is using my property without my consent. There was a pause. Are you absolutely sure, Mr. Gorman? Once you confirm this, we will proceed to impound the vehicle. I am absolutely sure, officer. That car is my property. I paid for it with my savings. I withdraw any and all permission he may have had to use it. Understood, sir. Your son is very insistent. He wishes to speak with you. Can I put him on? Yes, I said. Put him on. I heard muffled noises, and then Elias's voice, high-pitched and frantic. Dad! Dad! What is going on? What did you do? The police are here. They're saying the car isn't mine. You have to tell them. Tell them you gave it to me, please. His tone. It wasn't the cold, cruel voice from 2 days ago. This was the voice of a terrified child. Elias, I said, my voice dangerously quiet. Do you remember our last conversation? The one in the dark kitchen? Dad, this isn't the time. Just tell them. You told me to reflect, Elias, I continued, cutting him off. You told me to reflect on what it's like to be a failure. Dad, please, they're listening. It's just a misunderstanding. There is no misunderstanding. You told me to reflect. Well, now it's your turn. You can reflect on what it's like to be a pedestrian. There was a choked sound. You can't be serious. Dad, please don't do this to me. You did this to yourself, Elias. You did it when you stole from me. You did it when you lied to me. And you sure as hell did it when you insulted me while I was sick. Dad, please, he whispered. All the fight gone. Perfect, I said. It's time people heard the truth, instead of your lies about being an importer's son. I spoke to the officer again. Officer Maddox? Are you there? Yes, Mr. Gorman. Please proceed with impounding the vehicle. I will be there shortly to reclaim my property. One last thing, officer, I said. Where exactly are you? Sepulveda Boulevard, near the Westfield Mall, sir. We stopped him at a routine document checkpoint. Of course. The expensive mall. Off to another imaginary meeting. Thank you, officer. We're on our way. I hung up and looked at Gus. He just nodded grimly. Let's go get your car, Toby. We drove in silence. When we got to Sepulveda Boulevard, it was a scene. A police car, lights flashing. My silver BMW stopped awkwardly in the lane, and a massive tow truck already backing up to it. Elias was on the sidewalk, arguing frantically with Officer Maddox. He saw my truck pull up. His face went pale. Dad! No! You can't! He shouted, running toward me. Officer Maddox put a hand on his chest. Sir, stay on the sidewalk. I got out of Gus's truck, holding my title and registration. I walked past my son without looking at him and handed my documents to the officer. Mr. Gorman, Maddox said, nodding. Everything's in order. The vehicle is yours. I watched them hook the front end of the BMW to the tow lift. Elias was just crumbling. You can't do this. It's mine. He gave it to me. Your name's not on the paperwork, son, Maddox said flatly. The tow truck driver finished, and the officer handed me the keys. It'll be towed to the city impound lot, Mr. Gorman. You can pick it up there. No, I said. I'm the owner. It's not impounded. I'm driving it home. Right now. The officer looked at me, then at the tow truck driver. He's right. It's his property. Unhook it. They lowered my car. I walked over to the driver's side. Elias just stared at me, his face a mask of disbelief and horror. I saw him standing there on the sidewalk. A bus pulled up to the stop right behind him, pathetic in his expensive suit. He saw me watching him and ran over, his face desperate. "Dad, are you really taking the car?" I looked him right in the eye. All the lies, the shame, the word failure, it was all there between us. "The car was always mine, Elias," I said. "What I'm taking back is my respect." I got in. I started the engine I'd paid for. I put it in drive and pulled away from the curb, leaving him there. In my rearview mirror, I saw him, a 28-year-old man in a designer suit stranded at a bus stop with no money and no way home. The first part of his education had just begun. Driving that BMW back was a strange feeling. The engine purred. The ride was smooth. This car, my gift of love, had become a symbol of his betrayal. Now, it was the instrument of his lesson. I parked it in the garage, right where it belonged. It was more than just getting a car back. It was taking back my dignity. Gus followed me home. "And now what, Toby?" he asked, as we stood in the garage looking at the car. "Now," I said simply. "I wait." I didn't have to wait long. Around 6 p.m. hours later, I heard footsteps on the front path. They were slow, heavy, exhausted, not the arrogant stride I was used to. The front door opened. Elias shuffled in. His expensive suit was wrinkled and stained with sweat. His polished Italian shoes were covered in dust and scuffed. He looked broken. He found me in the living room. The house was still dark and cold. I hadn't paid the bill yet. I wanted him to feel the consequences of his theft. "Dad," he said, his voice hoarse. "Can we talk?" "Of course," I replied, my voice neutral. "Sit down." He collapsed onto the sofa. For a full minute, he just breathed. I could see him struggling, trying to find the words. "I don't understand why you did that," he finally mumbled, staring at the floor. "What part don't you understand, Elias? The part where I reclaimed my property? Or the part where I decided I'm done being disrespected? Dad, I swear I was going to pay you back. I have projects." "Stop," I said, and my voice cut through the dark. "No more. No more lies about projects. No more stories about investors. No more fantasies." His shoulders slumped. "They're not fantasies, Dad. They're real opportunities." "Opportunities for what?" I shot back. "To lie? To be ashamed of your father? To steal from me when I'm sick? What part of that is successful to you, Elias?" "But the car, Dad. That car opened doors for me. It gave me an image." "An image of a liar," I said. "Did any of those doors lead to a real job, a real paycheck, or just more expensive restaurants you paid for with my money?" His silence was the only answer I needed. "Do you know how much you've spent?" I continued, standing up. I checked the card before I canceled it. Over $3,000 in 3 months, Elias. On clothes and clubs and maintenance. $3,000 of my retirement. "They were investments in my image, Dad." "They were theft!" I roared, the pressure building in my head. "While I'm 65 on blood pressure medication, in a house with no power, you're investing in your image." He finally looked at me, and for the first time, I saw a crack in his armor. "Are you so ashamed of me, son?" I asked, my voice suddenly quiet. "Is it so terrible to have a mechanic for a father?" "It's not that, Dad," he whispered, his voice cracking. "Then what is it? Explain to me why my 40 years of honest work makes you call me a failure." Tears started to well in his eyes. I just wanted to be somebody. And to be somebody, I said, you had to make me nobody. For you to grow, I had to shrink. He just slumped over, his face in his hands. What do you want me to do now, Dad? I want you to get a real job. I want you to pay me back the 180 you stole, and I want you to pay the reconnection fee for the electricity. He looked up, his face panicked. I can't. Dad, I don't have any money. I spent it all. Then you'd better start walking, son, I said, turning away. That's how adults do it. You get a job, and in the meantime, you can sit here in the dark and reflect. The next morning, I left him in the dark house and went to Gus's. From there, I went to the SoCal Electric office and paid the bill myself. $180 plus a $65 reconnection fee. Total $245, paid from my own emergency savings. When I got back home, the lights were on. The refrigerator was humming. But the house was a mess. My study, he'd torn it apart. Papers were everywhere. The drawers were pulled out. Elias, I shouted. He came out of his room, his face pale but defiant. He was holding a piece of paper. What is this? I demanded, pointing at my study. I was looking for this, he said, holding up the paper. It was the original title for the BMW. This proves it. You gave it to me. It was a gift. You can't legally take it back. I'll get a lawyer. This proves it's mine. He was desperate. He thought he'd found his leverage, his last advantage. I just sighed. I walked past him into the study and went to the small safe hidden behind a painting. I spun the combination and opened it. You're right, Elias, I said, holding my hand out. That's the title. Give it to me. No, it's my proof. Give it to me, son. He reluctantly handed it over. I looked at it, then looked at him. You're right, I said. This is the title. And what's the name on it? Right here. Owner, Tobias Gorman. This doesn't prove it was a gift, son. This proves it's mine. The same way it proved it to Officer Maddox yesterday. His face crumpled. He hadn't even read it. He just assumed. And you're wrong, I continued, my voice ice. You can legally take back a gift if the person you gave it to proves to be ungrateful. But this wasn't even a gift. It was a loan. A loan you are no longer worthy of. I placed the title inside my safe. I put the bill of sale in there with it. And you just confirmed my decision, I said. Not only did you steal from me, lie to me, and insult me, but the first chance you got, you ransacked my private study, looking for a loophole, looking for one more way to cheat. I closed the heavy steel door of the safe. I spun the dial. The click of the tumblers falling into place echoed in the quiet room. Elias stared at the safe. It was the sound of his last advantage, his last hope, disappearing forever. He let out a sound, a sob, and slid down the wall, burying his head in his knees. He had nothing left. No car, no money, no rich friends, no lies, no leverage. He was finally, completely, powerless. The days that followed were a new kind of quiet. Elias was a ghost. He stayed in his room. When he came out, he wouldn't look at me. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a sullen, bruised silence. After 3 days, I knocked on his door. You have 2 choices, Elias. You can stay in this room and rot, or you can get up, find a job, and start paying your debt to me. The next morning, for the first time in months, he was up before me. He was wearing old jeans and sneakers. He was looking through the classifieds in the newspaper. He left the house at 8 a.m. He came back at 5 p.m. His face was grim. How'd it go? I asked. Terrible, he mumbled, collapsing on the sofa. I went to 5 places. As soon as they ask about my work experience, what am I supposed to say? I've been pretending to be an investor? They all said they'd call me. 2 places rejected me outright because I don't have my own transportation. So tell them the truth, I said, that you graduated and have been unemployed. I did, he snapped. It doesn't matter. He kept at it. Every day he left. Every day he came back defeated. His phone, which used to ring constantly, went silent. One afternoon, I answered the house phone. Hello, Mr. Gorman. This is Amelia Dawson. I'm a friend of Elias's. We were supposed to go to dinner. I can't get a hold of him. Is he okay? He's fine, Miss Dawson, I said. He's just reevaluating his financial priorities. Oh, she said, her voice changing. So, the family import business, did it run into trouble? Another lie. Miss, I think it's best you talk to Elias about his real situation. When I told Elias she had called, he just flinched. She was important, Dad, he whispered. I was going to take her to the Golden Spoon. With what money, Elias? Mine? He had no answer. The calls stopped. His friends, his contacts, his investors, they all vanished. Without the BMW and my money, his false identity evaporated. He wasn't just broke. He was a nobody. 2 weeks after I'd taken the car, he came home looking different. Not just tired, utterly beaten. I got a job, he said, not looking at me. Oh yeah? Where? Regal Foods supermarket, he mumbled. Night shift, 2 a.m. to 10 a.m., stocking shelves and organizing the warehouse. What's it pay? Minimum wage. I just nodded. When do you start? Monday. That night he accepted the job. His new life was about to begin. Monday, April 15th. I got up at 1 a.m. to make him coffee. He came out of his room, dressed in a plain work shirt and jeans. He looked terrified. Physical labor isn't degrading, Elias, I told him, handing him the mug. It's honest. It's real. He just nodded and walked out the door to catch the 1:30 a.m. bus. When he got home at 10:30 a.m., he was exhausted in a way I'd never seen. His hands were red and raw. He looked like he'd been hit by a truck. How was it? I asked. Hard, he breathed, sitting down at the kitchen table. Really hard. But at the end of the shift, the shelves were stocked. The work was done. Nobody asked me about consulting. He worked. All week. He'd come home, shower, eat, and fall into bed. He'd wake up, eat, and go right back to the bus stop. On May 1st, he got his first full paycheck. $200. That afternoon, he came to me in the garage. He was holding an envelope. Dad, he said, his voice quiet, I want to pay you back. I opened it. Inside was $245. This is the $180 I stole, he said, and the $60 for the reconnection fee. It's my responsibility. I took the money, not because I needed it, but because he needed to give it. What about the rest? I asked. He pulled another piece of paper from his pocket. It was a handwritten budget. I want to contribute $300 a month for household expenses. Food, utilities. I'm putting $200 into a savings account. The rest is for my bus pass, my food, and work clothes. It was a real plan. A responsible adult plan. The months went by. May, June. Elias changed. He was quiet, but he was present. He helped around the house. He asked about my health. He even came with me to play chess with Gus, and he just sat. He listened. He didn't brag. He didn't lie. Gus was amazed. He's changing, Toby, he'd said. He's finding his humility. On June 15th, 2024, exactly 1 year to the day I gave him the car, he sat down across from me. Dad, he said, and his voice was heavy. I need to apologize. I just waited. These last few months, working every night, I've had a lot of time to think. I realized I didn't just steal money from you. I didn't just insult you. I stole your pride. I stole your pride in being my father. His words hit me hard. Every time I lied about your job, he continued, his eyes filling with tears. Every time I was ashamed of this house, I wasn't just lying about me. I was denying everything you sacrificed. You worked for 40 years. You raised me alone. You paid for my education. You gave me my dream. And I repaid you by making you something to be ashamed of. He stood up and walked to the garage door, looking at the car. I'm not asking you to give it back to me. I'm asking for a chance to prove I can be the son you deserve. I stood up and walked over to him. I put my hand on his shoulder. Elias, I said, my own voice thick, you already have my forgiveness. He looked at me, shocked. Forgiveness is a gift, I said. But what you've been earning every day for 3 months, that's something different. You're earning back my respect. You're earning back my trust. And you're earning back my pride. I pulled him into a hug. And for the first time in over a year, it was real. No masks, no lies. Just a father and his son. I'm so sorry, Dad, he sobbed into my shoulder. I know, son, I said. I know. We fast-forwarded 6 more months. It was December 2024. Elias was still on the night shift. He'd been promoted to shift lead. He had over $1,000 in his savings account. He was taking online courses in logistics, using his degree. He was a different man. He was the man I'd always hoped he'd become. One afternoon, I called him out to the garage. The BMW was clean. I'd been keeping it maintained. Elias, I said, I think you're ready. I held out the keys. He just stared at them, and his eyes filled with tears. He shook his head. Dad, I can't. Yes, you can, I said, pressing them into his hand. But these keys are different now. They aren't a status symbol. They're not an image. They're a tool, one you've earned. They represent trust. They represent responsibility. He closed his hand around the keys, holding them like they were fragile. Thank you, Dad, he whispered. I won't disappoint you. Not again. I know you won't, I said. This time, we both know who you really are. My son had learned the hard way that a man's worth isn't in what he drives or what he wears. It's in his honesty. It's in his gratitude. And I had learned that sometimes the deepest love isn't about giving. It's about having the courage to take away, to let them fall so they can learn to stand on their own. Hey, Dad, Elias said, opening the car door. It's Thursday. You've got your chess game with Gus, right? Yeah, I said. Get in. He smiled, a real smile this time. I'll drive. For the first time, it wasn't about the car. It was about the company. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from, or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.